This is Christina Shala, and welcome to another episode of Empowering the Educator Within. In today's episode, we are going to take a look at how you, as an educator with a global vision, can design an educational framework model to ensure that schools around the world are implementing your vision consistently. In order to better understand the concepts that will be covered today, I highly recommend that you first check out the following videos: educational frameworks and individualized planners. Let's suppose that you, as an educator with a global vision, have the core goal of ensuring that inquiry-based learning is at the center of all curriculums. How would you imagine that you would go about designing an educational framework model to accomplish this? Before getting into the steps involved, it's first important to understand what you're going to be working towards. Now, this is a simplified educational framework model, but you can imagine it applying on a global scale. And basically, what it entails is your vision in the center and how schools around the world would plug into it. And you can see that each school is connected not only to each other, but also to the vision at the center, which would be your global vision. It also shows schools with slightly differing shades of gray. Some are the same, some are different. And this is to illustrate the fact that each school around the world is going to be offering different curriculums. There may be some schools that are, identical in curriculums offered. And it may be that other schools require slightly different versions of the educational framework that you design based on what they offer at their school. Designing an educational framework model involves 3 steps that we're going to take a look at today. The first step is designing the educational framework itself. The second one is creating an educational framework model. And the third involves designing the individualized planners to accompany your framework. When designing an educational framework on a global level, it would be impossible to include every single subject area on it. The goal when designing your framework would be to include enough subject areas so that an administrator at a school would get the idea of what it is you're looking for and could explain to staff members how they would be working collaboratively to implement your vision. Now, this model that I've shown here comes from my book, Empowering the Educator Within. It is not the only way to design an educational framework. For more information on this or how this inquiry-based framework was designed, you can refer to the book. But in looking in the diagram of the 2D model, what it would show schools is a base visual for how teachers would connect from top to bottom, bringing inquiry-based learning to the center and forefront at a school. Now, when giving this diagram to administrators, you would let them know that they can adjust accordingly to incorporate the different subject areas that they offer at their individual school. Now, to take things one step further, you can also give schools a 3D model. And this would illustrate how grade levels would connect within a school. So if you can imagine each level being a different grade level and then connecting vertically on the sides to show how teachers would not only collaborate at the grade level, but also that they would need to collaborate amongst the different grade levels at a school. The next step in the process involves creating the educational framework model. Now, if you'll recall from the first diagram that I showed, it illustrated how schools were going to work together collaboratively to implement your vision. In the diagrams here, it shows specifically how you could illustrate your educational framework connecting at a global level. Now, this is but one way that this could be designed, but let's say that your vision was to get school districts working together to implement your vision. So having each school district, sharing your educational framework amongst the schools in their district, and then taking that on a global level. So districts of schools would be connecting together. So this first 2D diagram illustrates one way that you could design an educational framework model that would convey this vision that you have. And by providing it to school districts and schools, they can see how on a global level, everyone will be using your educational framework as a base to move towards implementing your core goal of ensuring that inquiry-based learning is at the center of all curriculums. Now, if you wanted to, you could also design a 3D model. And again, this is just one way that it could look. But it would give school districts and schools an understanding that not only would schools be working at grade levels, so grade levels of teachers just working towards implementing your vision, but how from K to 12 across school districts on a global level, teachers would be working collaboratively to implement your vision. As you'll know from watching prior videos, educational frameworks cannot stand on their own. They require accompanying planners to help teachers implement the vision behind the educational framework. Now, as an educator with a global vision, you're faced with a bit of a challenge. Because as you'll know, individualized planners need to take into account so many different variables, such as class composition. Is the teacher teaching a split grade class, a multi-level class? How many years of experience does the teacher have, etc. And so when you're looking to design individualized planners, you need to figure out how much leeway you're going to give administrators in modifying the planners that you create. Because if they go too far, the planners themselves may no longer support the educational framework that you've designed. And so when you go about the design process and thinking about what types of planners you're going to create, you need to figure out which types of teachers you're going to design for. And so it could be that you design, a standard planner for a mainstream teacher, standard planner for a specialist teacher, standard planner for a single subject area teacher, and, standard planner for a learner support teacher or, language support teacher. And then you just give administrators maybe some professional development to help them understand ways that these specific sets that you've designed could be modified, or perhaps you give them a handout, illustrating different examples and ways that they could do so. But what's important is that when you're sharing this information with administrators, you show them which parts of the planners cannot be modified. And so you'll see in this example here, and I've just shown snippets, not the entire planner, it illustrates how certain aspects of the planners come together to match and enforce the inquiry-based framework. And so you'll see through the arrows, it depicts how information is shared amongst staff members and how teachers are required to collaborate. And so if you're looking for more information as to how to go about doing this, please refer to my book, Empowering the Educator Within. Why would you, as an educator with a global vision, take the time to design an educational framework model, and planners to accompany it? Well, first of all, you're going to create a sense of unity on a global level, because schools and school districts understand that they're not a standalone in implementing your vision. They can see clearly that the idea is for schools to be collaborating amongst each other, for teachers to be sharing resources and ideas and materials that all support your educational framework and vision. You can also imagine professional development taking place on a global level between school districts and schools that are all following your educational framework model. Not only do you end up creating this sense of unity, but you also end up empowering teachers, because a lot of times teachers are given sort of these vague guidelines on how to approach implementing a vision, but things aren't super clear. And so because there's this confusion, you end up with staff at a school kind of implementing things in their own way. But if you can provide schools with planning tools and set ways of implementing your vision, you can ensure that you're empowering teachers and that there's consistency. And because you've got empowered teachers who are confident in what they're doing, this is going to trickle down to empowering students. Because now it doesn't matter which school a student goes to from K to 12 that's implementing your vision, because it's all going to look standardized. There's a set method and approach in place. And also, too, you're going to end up with students that get a consistent learning journey from K to 12. And this will help solidify, their learning, and will also help them to understand how everything connects not only at a certain grade level, but amongst different grade levels as they move. This video only addressed how you would take an educational framework that was more curriculum-based, for example, showing how curriculums at a school would connect and teachers would work collaboratively. But you can design an educational framework model based on a goal for shifting mindset. You could also come up with a way to share teaching method on a global level. And so if you're looking for more suggestions and ways that you can take your idea and, share it with the world, you can visit www.shalabooks.com You can check out articles that I've written on the education blog, and you can also, via the website, purchase my book, Empowering the Educator Within, which also has more examples. And if you feel like you may need some further guidance, feel free to contact me via the website. I'm always happy to help. Thanks for joining us today. Tune in next time for another episode of Empowering the Educator Within.